Hello and welcome to the Flix Forum podcast, where each episode we go back and we look at a Netflix original film in the order of release. Today we have Netflix 439th film from 2021. It's the Spanish language psychological thriller called Fever Dream, or in Spanish it's Distancia, rescate. It's directed by Claudia Llosa and stars Maria Valverde and Dolores. Fonzi. I'm Jesse, I'm your host. Thank you for joining me today for this Netflix original film. As always, we are going to spoil this film as we progress through this episode. So, if you haven't seen this yet, please do give us a pause and come back a little bit later on. You may be able to hear in my voice, I am struggling a little bit. This is, my wife is in America at the moment, so I'm single dadding at the moment by myself. I've been doing it for about 10 nights now. I'm super struggling. This is the first night where I haven't had to go to bed with the kids, and I'm sort of trying to get a podcast out. It's been my son's birthday. It's been a long day. He's been so excited about that. You might be able to hear the whir of the heater in the background. In Australia at the moment, it's the middle of winter, and I think after this is about our 500 and something episode, I've actually got it running in the background. The heater's running. I'm not going to turn it off because I think it's 0.9 degrees Celsius at the moment. Absolutely freezing. I think if for our North American listeners, that's 33.6 degrees or something. So it's very cold. I'm freezing. I'm tired. I've got the hiccups. I can't breathe. So you're getting an episode from me. So just put up with what you're hearing because that's where we're at. So let's get back to this. Let's get into this episode called Fever Dream, where we start our show off with our fast flicks and we do a quick little summary of what the film is all about. I'm hoping that my hiccups stop in between this. But the fast flicks for this episode, a quick little summary is a woman travels with her daughter but gets caught up in a fever-like dream narrated to her through the child of a woman that she befriends. There we go. That's a really poor summary because let's jump into how this ended up on Netflix. What did Netflix say about this film? The Netflix logline for this film is celebrated writer Samantha Schweblin and award-winning director Claudia Llosa concoct a sophisticated horror story out of maternal love. Please, this is rubbish. Like, what's this? This gives you nothing. If I'm an audience member clicking, I'm not going to watch this. But then once you start watching on Netflix, it further says the charged relationship between two young mums, one a visitor and the other a local, reveals a looming environmental catastrophe and a spiritual clash. Again, what the hell? Netflix, you're not selling this film to me. The tagline is pay attention, and I am going to get into some depth a little bit later on about, yes, that makes sense to this film, but also, oh, mate, paying attention to this one is pretty much drummed into your mind as you're watching this through the voiceover. But let's look around the world. So the idea of fever dream, obviously, if the English translation of fever dream is this is a woman who's having a fever dream. What's going on? That's the question of this thriller, I guess. If we take the direct Spanish translation of, was it Distancia rescate, it means rescue distance, which makes a lot of sense. And I wish that this title was kept for the English translation. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. It's the same in Italian, Chinese, Swedish, Ukrainian, Russian. Those countries all got it right. Around the world, the other countries, in Portuguese it's called the invisible thread. That's great because that also ties in with rescue distance, which we'll talk about soon too. In Croatian it's called the thread that binds us. Good, this all ties in, the idea of a mother and their child, the thread, the rescue distance, all makes sense. In Czech it's called out of reach. Yeah, not bad. Finnish it's called my nightmare. Nah, don't like it. French it's called toxic. Yeah, don't like that either. German, the poison. That makes sense and is a bit of a spoiler as we go. In Greek, it's called safety distance. Yeah, that's good. It ties into with that idea of rescue distance. In Japanese, it's called the nightmare torments. Don't know. Don't necessarily agree with it. The same, like Polish, it's safe distance. That's good. Romanian, it's called show feverish. Meh. Turkish, delirium. Meh. Arabic, fever dreaming. Meh. Vietnamese, again, this is the last one. They're back with a ripper. They always have great translations. In Vietnamese, this is spooky fantasy. Yeah, there we go. All right, so let's talk about this film. It's directed by Claudia Llosa, as said before. It's from a screenplay that she co-wrote with Samantha Schleblin, who also wrote the novel in 2014, and it's of the same name. And this novel was actually shortlisted for the Man Booker International Prize Award. So there you go, some little bit of recognition for the actual novel that this film is based on. The author, Schweblin, she actually drew inspiration for this book from the use of harmful pesticides in farming towns throughout Argentina. So there you go. That might tie in a little bit to some of the themes and the ideas in this film. If we go to December of 2018, Netflix announced that it's going to produce this film, or a film version of this novel, Fever Dream, by the author and directed by the Peruvian director, Claudia Llosa. Filming began in Chile in early of 2019, and this is the first Netflix original film from Peru. A quote here: "The film portrays the love and fear surrounding motherhood through a complex feminine prism," said director Claudia Llosa. "I'm very happy to return to South America, and I'm very grateful to Netflix for having been enthusiastic about this project from the beginning. I feel like I could not have gotten better travel companions for this project. One that speaks of a local problem that touches the whole world." There we go. It's been a while since we've had a director with a quote talking Netflix up quite a bit. We go on to see what Netflix had to say about this. So they said, "We are excited to partner with Claudia Llosa, Mark Johnson, and Fabula Productions." Ian Brick, the co-head of independent film team at Netflix, said, "They are incredible storytellers, and Distancia, rescate is a story we believe will resonate with our global audience. This is a truly international partnership featuring an Argentine story filmed in Chile from a Peruvian director partnering with an American production company. It's a great example of our ongoing aim to provide storytellers from around the world with a platform to reach movie lovers everywhere." There we go. What a positive quote from Netflix there as well. This film, Fever Dream, it was a part of Netflix special Halloween programming in 2021 called Netflix and Chill, which included Patrick Bryce, the director of Creep, and his film There's Someone Inside Your House, which we've covered recently on this show as well, and Mike Flanagan's new series at the time, Midnight Mass, which also was a big hit for Netflix. This did premiere at the 69th San Sebastian International Film Festival on the 20th of September 2021, before having a limited theatrical run in the United States, as well as Peru and some other countries from the 6th of October 2021, before hitting Netflix worldwide on the 13th of October 2021. It was filmed in and around Santiago and Puerto Varas in Chile, and it was nominated for 2 awards, one at the Argentinian Film Critics Association Awards for Best Foreign Film in the Spanish language, as well as Best Film at the San Sebastian International Film Festival. Didn't win either of those, but had a little bit of recognition. So, if we look at the critics and audiences, what are they saying about this film? On Rotten Tomatoes, this sits at 71%. That's on 41 reviews, so that is fresh. On the positive side, the audience a little bit lower, sits at 46%. That's on more than 50 ratings, so a bit of a differential there. If we look at IMDb, sits at a 5.4 out of 10 on 2,700 ratings, so above the 5 mark, you'd have to say is positive. Same on Letterboxd, sits at a 3.1 out of 5, so above 3, pretty good, on 6,300 ratings, but it's been logged by a bit over 8,000 people. Metacritic, they rate the films on a traffic light system of red, yellow, and green, green being positive. The critics have it at 75 out of 100 on 9 critic reviews. That is green. That is super positive. But again, the audience a little bit lower, 6 out of 10 on 8 reviews. Not many, you'd have to say, but that is in yellow. So that's in the middle range. So if we combined all these together, you'd probably say this is an okay film. But what are my early thoughts? What am I thinking about this one? Did I like this? Did I not? I found this slow. I found it boring. Even the payoff or the reveal of the twist at the end, it felt a little bit lame, mainly because of the voiceover usage throughout this film. I don't know, like, I get the themes, I get the ideas. It's a nice film, it looks good, it's performed well, it's put together really well. but it just felt too much in your face for me. So, unfortunately, I'm going to come at this from a bit of a critical point of view, which is a little bit different to the critics across the world. So, the director, Claudia Llosa, 11 directing credits, a bit of TV, some docos, some shorts, some film, as mentioned before, from Peru. So, I'm probably going to talk a little bit further, or a little bit later on, about some of her other work, because I think I probably need to open my eyes a little bit to some of her other pieces, because to me, while I'm sort of saying this didn't work too much for me, I think there's potential. I think there's some options or some opportunity there for me to enjoy some of her other work. But that leads us to the characters in this film. So let's talk about the characters. The main protagonist, I guess, or the character that the audience follows along the most in this film is Amanda, who is a scared young mother who only cares for her daughter and the idea of protecting her. And when she takes her daughter away on this trip, on this holiday, and they go away together and they stay at this place or this house, which leads her to build this connection with a character called Carola. And they connect, or they're drawn together, because of this discussion, or this ability to talk about being parents and that idea of being a mother. And even if Carola is less concerned in parenting and the idea of that love for a child than Amanda, they still hit it off a little bit. So if we're talking a little bit about Carola, she is almost this country girl who seems sort of tied to this isolated location and doesn't want to escape, or doesn't have that need or the ability to escape. And this is where her son David and her are, and there's no real outlet for her to want to escape, even though there's quite a lot of disdain, I guess, for, or her feelings towards her son David, because of something that occurs in this film, which I'm not going to touch on here. Omar is David's father and Carola's husband, and the idea, he's only sort of introduced through flashbacks and a few small little moments, but he's a horse breeder, and he's lost everything through this, which has obviously impacted Carola and their son David. And I found him as a nonchalant male character in this film, I guess. And there's some weird scenes. Maybe he likes the idea of breeding horses himself, if you read between the lines there too. If we talk about David, their son, he provides the voiceover to Amanda, who I mentioned at the start as the main protagonist. This happens throughout the film, which I really hated. I've got to say, I did not like that at all as a narrative progression point or idea. And I get that this may have worked in the novel, but this is a film and it just didn't work for me. It really created this disconnection, because the connection that David, this kid, has with Amanda, that he's creating like this, and I guess if you're looking at the English translation of this film as fever dream, he's almost that dream, or that dreamlike voice that appears in Amanda's head, which we're told as an audience through his voiceover. And this is set up because his mother Carola has given up on him being the son that she gave birth to, and it just felt super clunky. I don't know, it just didn't work as a film for me. The only other character I'll touch on is Nina, which is Amanda's daughter, who is taken on this trip with Amanda. And I think this is because her dad and Amanda's husband Marco is always too busy with work or never there for them. So the idea of a mother providing for the child and being there, and the idea that Amanda wants to protect this child Nina throughout, that's where Nina sort of appears in this narrative too. Let's talk about some scenes. What worked, what didn't work in this film? For me, there's a couple of things that worked. I think there's a scene where Amanda and Carola, obviously I mentioned before, they build this good connection, and Amanda teaches Carola how to drive a car. I thought that was nice. I thought that played out well, and it just showed that connection between the two. The only other scene that sort of worked for me, I guess, was Carola. She stands over Nina, and I've mentioned her actual son David she has no connection to, so she's standing over Nina saying, "I'm going to take you while you're sleeping." And I think that was probably the creepiest moment of this film that felt real compared to what else this film may have been trying to say. Some things that didn't work in this one. I think the dialogue between the voiceover and David and Amanda, and especially at the start, there's this idea about I think it was talking about running a hand over the car, and Amanda just doesn't do it. It felt weird, which led for this voiceover throughout to feel weird. And as I've mentioned, not a big fan of the voiceover. There's I mentioned Marco before, not Marco, Amar, which is which is the husband or the dad of David. And there's a moment where he's trying to breed these horses, and he sees that there's this horse going at it with another horse. So I believe he felt happy, and he drops his pants and sort of has a bit of a play with himself. And then the cut goes to him having sex with his wife, Carola, which I felt weird. It just felt super weird. I was like, what's going on here? If we talk about Carola, she says that she wouldn't take David. This is where David sort of has this poisoning, I guess, occurs. And she's like, I'm not going to take him to the emergency room or ER because there was too much traffic in the town and it would take too long for a doctor to come. Like, seriously, there's some shots throughout this film that show that this town is probably the most quiet, backwoods, dead as a nail or doornail town that there could be. That dialogue didn't work. This woman in a greenhouse where Carola takes David to get cured, and she goes on this sort of like chant and this mystic witch sort of stuff about migration. It was just rubbish. She was an absolute crook. It didn't mean anything. She was almost a crock of etc. There's a scene where Amanda's in bed with Nina singing her bedtime songs. It was so boring. Then Nina goes to sleep and Amanda goes outside to where her car's just sitting there in the field with the lights on and the doors are open. Waste of time of a scene. Finally, Amanda freaks out that David is doing something to Nina. Like, she's gone out, Nina's in the house, David's locked the doors. She smashes a window to get into the house to get to Nina as quickly as possible. She gets her, realizes they're just playing like hide and seek, and then she's carrying Nina downstairs and sort of just hands her over to this random old lady who's possibly a housekeeper, when the prior scene or the whole thing was about how worried she was that Nina wasn't with her. It just didn't make sense. Anyway, I'm done with that. Let's talk about some themes, some ideas, some motifs in this film. I picked up on this because of looking a little bit into the novel that the film's based on, but the idea of the environment and care for the environment and the poisoning of land with agricultural chemicals, that plays a big part in this film. And sort of like this, there's hints throughout the film, and it sort of ties up right at the end. Probably could have been played on a little bit more. The rescue distance. This is what I was talking a little bit about before. The idea of rescue distance and the idea of that's the title of the film in its native language, and this is so important because it's about that mental calculation, I guess, of what a mother makes of how long it would take her to save her child, and this is played out in the film with Nina, the child, playing around the pool, and Amanda sitting nearby sort of working out or worrying about what's going to happen to her, and this is that thread that ties you to your child, but also those horrors of parenthood too, and the change of motherhood and worrying about the worst thing that could happen to your child, and there's no question about the idea of mothers doing anything for their kids to support them, as well as mothers bonding together to support each other too, through Amanda and Carola. The idea too, I guess, of motherhood and a child reaching an age when they become a stranger to you. They develop and they're no longer that little baby that you nurtured, and that plays out in this film too. And the idea too of loving someone so much or too much that it's hard to let them go as well. And nature versus human nature too plays in that idea with the environmental message that's in this film as well. What else did I take away from this film? I think looking into this film, I'm a little bit intrigued with the director, and I want to watch more of Claudia Llosa's other films. I think there's one called Milk of Sorrow, which seems like it would be a bit of a heartbreaking film about sexual violence in Peru in the 1980s, and I'm very keen to check on that one out, as well as a film from 2014 that she did called Aloft, and I think it was her first English feature, possibly, which starred Jennifer Connelly, Cillian Murphy, Melanie Laurent. I really need to check that out as well. Even if I've seen a lot of things that say it's not that great a film, I still want to see these films because I feel like the groundwork's there to make a film work. For me, I've sort of made it pretty clear this one didn't work for me, but I believe as a director has the talent to make a good film. All right, some questions, some pondering, some thoughts, some ideas to finish the show off. Surely it wasn't just me. There were multiple scenes throughout this film where I was like, Carola and Amanda, they kind of wanted each other, or was that just that motherly bond of these two with these males that were sort of off to the side that did nothing for them, that they connected? I'm not sure, but there were some very sexual vibes between the two throughout the film. And maybe this is a moment where we sort of bow down a little bit to Netflix and thank them for this, because I would put money on this that myself and others probably wouldn't be able to experience this film without Netflix. There's no way that this film would have got a release in Australia without Netflix. Possibly it could have had a small release on DVD through a small distributor, but other than that, there's no way I would have seen this film without Netflix. So good on you, Netflix. Well done. The healer lady, the lady that lived in the greenhouse. I've got to talk about her. Like, she lived at the end of this river. Like, if this film's about poisons that are used on agriculture that impact small towns and fertility rates and impact, you know, the development of children too. This little healer lady, what did she actually do? Like, nothing really. Like, no matter what she did, it was all a bit of a bluff realistically, because these kids were going to be impacted no matter what because of, unfortunately, where they were born and where they lived. Amanda's conversations, or the voiceovers from David throughout the film, my belief is that throughout the film, as you go back and think about it, everything that she was talking to David about throughout the film in voiceover, she was in the hospital bed. And that's why she was so frantic and stressed about Nina, because she didn't actually know where her daughter was the whole time. And to me, that's a bit heartbreaking, the idea that that Carola had taken her daughter, and that's her lying in bed, not knowing what had happened to her, and trying to talk to David to not only find out where her daughter was, but for David to try and explain what had been happening in this town. I thought that was kind of well done. I've sort of said this already, but the fathers or the dads in this film, they all sucked. Like Marco, did he have any intention of actually coming on this holiday with his family? I don't think so. That's poor. I read this article about this film while looking into this film too, that they compared this to Memento by Christopher Nolan. We're not too far away from Nolan's release of Odyssey, which a lot of people are super excited about. I'm excited about myself. I'm going to see it in IMAX. I'm very keen on it, but the idea to even compare this film just because of the non-linear storytelling, that's kind of a little bit outrageous, to be honest. But maybe that's just me and my interest in this film that we're talking about today. And I've said this before too, the original title, they should have kept it for an English audience. Like, that idea of rescue distance, that idea of how far can a mother be away from their child before freaking out. I believe English language audiences are probably intelligent enough to get it. Like, especially if this is going on Netflix anyway, for a majority of the world, leave the original title. Like, Fever Dream doesn't add anything to the film, unfortunately. I've got to say, how lucky are people, especially myself as well included, where you can live in a place where you can turn the tap on, put a glass under it, and fill it up with water, and be confident you can drink that and stay healthy. And that's just sad. That's a sad thing from this film as well. And I got to go back, my struggles with this film and the voiceover in this film. And I've said it multiple times already, not just in this episode, but in previous, like, we've done, this is 529 episodes we've done on this show. I can't deal with voiceovers. I firmly believe it's lazy storytelling. Unless you are an amateur short filmmaker, you're a student trying to make a short film and can't account for sound, and you really need a voiceover to help progress or tell the narrative, to me, it's so lazy. And in this film in particular, I don't need to be told as an audience member 1,000 times to pay attention to details. And that is consistently what David says in this voiceover to Amanda. Pay attention to detail. Yes, I'm an audience. Please, I don't need you to tell me that I need to pay attention to detail to try and work this film out. That really frustrated me. While I was looking into this film, I was reading a review from Screen Daily, and I really like this quote. They said, "Leaving mother and child bonds aside for a moment, sometimes it's actually okay for kids to just shut up." Yes, David, please shut up. Let me watch this film. And another good question. Like, this is, as I said at the start, this was promoted by Netflix in their Halloween sort of Netflix and chill category. Is this a horror film? Because, if you put it in a Halloween lineup, it's like, oh, this is going to be scary. There was not one moment, apart from, I said in the scenes that I liked, there was a moment where Carola was over the top of Nina's body, sort of saying, "I'm going to steal you." That was creepy, but it wasn't scary. This is not a Halloween film for me, unfortunately. Another side note, Europeans. This is a European film, clearly, and I've said this multiple times. Cigarettes, they love their ciggies. You'll never see that amount of smoking in an Australian film. And I have no idea how much a pack of cigarettes cost in Australia these days, but that would blow the budget of a film, as well as nudity. I say this all the time, but there's nothing like a bit of European breasts in a film. Like, why did this need to be added in this film? It added nothing. It wasn't like it was a really romantic sex scene or anything like that. It was just like voyeurism almost, and that didn't add anything to this film. I also couldn't help but think the whole way through this film, why didn't Amanda just get up and leave? It just didn't make sense. If you think about the proper timeline of this film, not the one where Amanda's in hospital through the voiceovers throughout, but she could have got up and left through any of these creepy moments. Was it just because she had the hots almost for Carola? Because that's all I can put it down for. And finally, like, the idea of this whole film was leading up to this voiceover moment where David was dragging Amanda all the way from the hospital bed to get to see this witch doctor. How? This little 10-year-old boy, how did he do it? He couldn't. That's why this film, or one of the reasons why this film just didn't work for me. But let's wrap this up. We give the film a rating out of 5 on this show. For me, it looks good throughout. Like, it was performed well. I couldn't deal with the voiceover or the way that the narrative played out. Like, there is a good story here. There's some good themes. There's some good ideas. It all should have worked much better than it did for me. And I'm so keen to check out the director's other work, but for me, this one just didn't work. It's a little bit poor for me. This is a 1.5 out of 5. We're on socials. We have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have X, formerly known as Twitter. Give us a follow, give us a like. The question I wanted to ask in relation to this film is the idea is it better to lose someone you love altogether? The idea of what Carola had to go through with David, or for them to become a stranger to you. And probably that ties in too with the males in this film. Both our female protagonists have pretty much lost the males in their lives. If you watch them on screen or hear them on screen through phone conversations, they did nothing. So how does that rate to you? That's a tough question. Such a hard question. I'm not going to answer it. I did send a message out to our co-hosts who pop up every now and then, Heater and MJ, just to say, this is one of those films I would have loved for the three of us to get together. I feel like Heater would have been in my pocket going, this is not great. And I feel like MJ would have been like, this is amazing. So I'm hoping MJ and Heater both give this a watch, just so I can sort of hear their thoughts on it, because this is one of those films where you want to actually talk to someone about it, so you can sort of quantify or say, yes, my beliefs are right, because based on other critics, I'm wrong. But to me, that's where I'm at. 1.5 out of 5. Please give us a follow on socials. We are back next week with another international film. This one is from Poland from 2021. It's a crime drama called Operation Hyacinth, or in Polish, it's just Hyacinth. It's directed by Piotr Domilewski and stars Tomasz Ziet, Hubert Milowski, and Marek Kalita. There we go. Hopefully you can give this one a watch before next week. Join me along for that one. As always, appreciate your time. Thanks for hanging out. Please do share us with as many people as possible so we can get the word out, and I'll see you next week.